Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Ryan Ruocco, ESPN Radio, Yes Network. Ryan, it's Ryan and Scott. How you doing?
I'm great, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course. Thanks for taking the time out. How was San Fran?
You know what? I'm still here because I'm headed to Portland for my game on Wednesday. It didn't make sense for me to go all the way back east just to come back west. So it's beautiful, man. First of all, the weather has just gotten nicer and nicer every single day. Yep. Today it's like 84, which is the warmest day they've had in months. And the weather for the Super Bowl, especially like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, was spectacular. It's a great city. It's a great city even without an event like the Super Bowl, but it did such an amazing job hosting this event. I'm lucky enough that I've been to quite a few Super Bowls and gotten to see, which cities are great for it, which ones maybe aren't so great for it, and this one is certainly one that should be getting another Super Bowl as soon as they can.
So, talking about the Super Bowl here, we heard that it was about 80-20 Broncos fans out there.
That's what Drew said. That's what Drew Casey said.
Yeah. So what was the atmosphere like in the stadium yesterday during everything?
Yeah, no, it was definitely somewhere around there. It was somewhere 80-20, 70-30, something like that. And, you kind of expect that a little bit when you're dealing with a team that is geographically so much closer like Denver is with San Francisco. And then also a franchise that's got so much more history. If you think about who the Panthers are drawing in to their fan base besides the people who live there, they don't have as many years to have done that. And you need stars in order to do that. And in their case, they have Cam now. And so I think you do have some people who have become Panthers fans or who root for the Panthers because of Cam, because he's such a big star. But, even his stardom has just reached a new level this year. It'll be interesting to see how much more that fan base might grow in the next 5, 6, 7 years as Cam continues to play in his prime. But Denver's obviously a long-established, successful franchise, and then you have the whole Peyton Manning crowd, which is incredibly plentiful after his near 2 decades of excellence. So I knew it was going to be an uphill climb, and it was. That's probably about the right percentage, I'd say, somewhere in between 70-30, 80-20. So there was certainly a lot more noise when Cam Newton was waiting to take a snap than when Peyton is. And what's so interesting about that is, a lot of times because there's a split in the crowd, you don't necessarily have a disruptive noise to, quarterback's cadence.
Good point.
But Peyton's last 2 Super Bowl losses, the one in Miami against the Saints, right, and then the one at Giants Stadium or MetLife Stadium against the against the Seahawks. The fans of New Orleans and the fans of Seattle were 2 of the most rabid, loud fan bases I've ever heard at a Super Bowl. So they really made it feel like when they were operating their offense, Peyton and the Broncos or the Colts in the first one against the Saints, like it was a road game.
Yeah.
And if you remember, it was sort of a story the last Super Bowl when Peyton lost in New York because they didn't practice with crowd noise. And remember, early on, the snap goes over his head, and they have a safety, one of the first plays of the game, And this year, Peyton Manning insisted that they practice with crowd noise so that they could counteract that sort of scenario. And, as it turned out, he didn't have to deal with anything like what he dealt with crowd-wise with the crazy, amazing Saints and Seahawks fans. But it's just interesting because the crowd dynamics are always sort of an unknown variable in a Super Bowl, whereas when you're going into a road venue or you're playing home, you know exactly what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You brought up Peyton Manning. Was last night his last game in your mind, and do you think it should be his last game?
Yes and yes. I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan. He's been one of my favorite players for a very, very long time. It's hard to watch right now, seeing, a more or less impotent version of him when you compare him to what we saw for his entire career. I mean, this is a Peyton Manning that, basically redefined the quarterback position, and now he can just sort of lob his way down the field.
Yeah.
I think his contributions were actually a little underrated when you take a look at the very end of the regular season once he replaced Brock Osweiler and then the first two playoff games heading into yesterday. But, I mean, clearly he didn't play a good game yesterday. He just kind of adopted the mentality he had to with this group, which was don't try and do too much. I mean, I think there were times in his career where on the big stage he probably, felt like he had to do a little too much and force some things, and he sort of learned with this group that wasn't the way to be, and give him credit for completely changing his mentality and adopting exactly what needed to be. It's almost like the opposite of what people are criticizing Kobe Bryant for right now, right? Like, hey, dude, it's not the time for you to take 25 shots anymore. I love Kobe, by the way, but, with Peyton, it's sort of like he understood it's not the time to take 25 shots anymore, right? It's the time to take eight shots and let the rest of the team do their work.
I feel like you've never had to hold your breath when Peyton throws a ball, but this whole season, it's like you had to, you were short of breath every time he had to drop back.
That's the perfect description, actually, man. It really is. Every time he throws, you're like, oh, what's going to happen here? Which is not the way you should feel for perhaps the greatest quarterback of all time. So give him credit. He's over 500 now in his postseason career. He's the only quarterback to win Super Bowls with two different teams. And he sort of can partially dispel the postseason struggles narrative now that he has two titles. But clearly he's a shell of the amazing quarterback he was, and you only want to be that diminished version of yourself for but so long so that it doesn't, in any way curb into the memory of what was, in my opinion, the single most dominant franchise influencer as far as players go in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, so now flipping teams, Cam Newton frustrated the entire game. You could see it on the field, on the sidelines, and we saw it in the press conference. What do you make of him leaving that press conference?
Well, yeah, first of all, did you guys see? I felt like his body language during the game was awful.
We just said that.
We said that. Very lackluster. Yeah. I thought he was going to come out flipping out. He didn't seem the Cam we saw all season.
Yeah.
Well, and before the game, one of the things I thought was awesome was, like, right before kickoff, he was down. The Broncos were getting ready to receive. Cam had run down the sideline. I don't know if you, I was fortunate enough to be at the game yesterday, and this was sort of on my side of the field where I was sitting. He had run down, I don't know if they showed it on TV, into the end zone, was getting the crowd going, his Panther fans going as the Broncos were getting ready to receive the kick. And I was like, wow, when do you see another team on the field getting ready and the opposing quarterback, who's not even about to be on offense, is riling up the troops, and I thought it was awesome. Yeah. And when they scored their one touchdown, he was fired up. But for the most part, he looked a little shocked. And I guess that Denver defense can do that to anyone, but it's more jarring when you go from someone who is so gregarious and so energetic and then see them look so dejected. I mean, if it's Eli Manning and he has the same body language that Cam did yesterday, it doesn't feel like that big a swing, Yeah. If it's Russell Wilson and he has the kind of body language he did yesterday, although Wilson certainly can be fiery at times, it wouldn't feel like that big a swing. But for Cam, he is such a lightning rod, such a spark plug. To see him looking, as dazed and confused as he did was sort of alarming and jarring. And even in the final drive, you're down 2 touchdowns. There's, a minute left. You're not going to win. But, he's, walking to the line of scrimmage and all that. I just thought, it was almost like he knew what was happening and had seen enough, and it reminded me a little bit, and this is not necessarily a fair comparison, it's just something visually that it reminded me of, sometimes when LeBron James gets in a huge game and he just knows it's not happening, he'll kind of shut it down and hang on the perimeter a little bit, and I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago in the finals, Game 5 against the Spurs, when the Spurs just absolutely ramrodded the Heat in that series. In the beginning of the game, LeBron came out amazing. It was a beast in the first quarter. And then, as the game went on, he just sort of realized, there was no chance his team was going to do this. And so basically he went, 8 minutes in the third quarter, not touching the basketball, just kind of, almost resigned to what was going to happen, It felt that way a little bit at times yesterday with Cam. He was getting hit so much. I wonder if he almost was, resigned to the fact that, his guys couldn't block them, As far as his post-game stuff, I wasn't the best loser playing sports growing up. I was always an upset person, but I felt like Steve Young had the best, and that was on obviously a much lower level where I never had to answer a single question to the media.
Right.
But I thought Steve Young had a good explanation of it. Like, is it the worst thing? And no, it's not. Like you're upset. You just lost a huge game. However, when you will have the kind of personality where you are, going to be into the histrionics and into such flagrant celebrations when things are going good, and then you act that way when things are going bad and they don't go well.
Ryan literally just said that 10 minutes ago.
You just opened yourself up to that criticism. That's all. I mean, if you sign with that, that's fine. But I don't think it's unreasonable to feel like, hey, man, you got to give a little bit more. The rest of your team's going to. You got to give a little bit more after the game, just for the sake of being. If you're going to be the man, you're going to be the face of the franchise, and even the face of the league. You need to maybe handle defeat a little differently.
Right, exactly. Great point. We're right here on Beast of the East, WRPR 90.3 FM with Ryan Ruocco. Ryan, let's get into you and your career now. Describe the journey from Fordham and WFUV to now. Yankees play-by-play, Nets play-by-play, ESPN play-by-play. You're doing it all. Describe the journey.
I'm lucky, man. I'm very blessed. I have like the most amazing support system ever. Like I always say that instead of having to try and prove people wrong, I've always just had to try and prove people right. My parents taught me from the time I was really little I could do anything I wanted to. My sister's one of my best friends. Like I have the most awesome aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents, and my friends are amazing. So like I've always had confidence that I could do, whatever I wanted to do. So I didn't have to necessarily get over people around me doubting. Instead, it was feeling always supported, which is huge in anything you do, and especially if you're going to do something where you're open to, public criticism because people are observing your work, whatever that may be, whether it's being the quarterback of an NFL team or a radio host, right, or a play-by-play guy. But Fordham was amazing for me. I know you guys have a great program there as well. I lead my buddy Don LaGreca.
Yes.
By
the way, thank you very much for that shout out. You probably don't remember it, but about a year ago, you, Don, and Michael gave us a huge shout out while we were down with the air. So without you guys, we wouldn't even be here right now. So we just want to thank you a lot because without that, we're not here.
It's important what you guys are doing. So we're happy to help, man. I mean, that's how you get better. It's about the reps, And my mentality always was, if you crack the door open for me, I'll kick it down. And I was, you have to have people crack the door, though. And I was lucky enough to. And then you just try and, with each opportunity, prove that you are, worth that chance and that opportunity. And, I've been able to do that. I've had a lot of, companies and bosses give me those chances. And it's just, it's preparation, for every assignment. I don't care whether it's a demo of a local game you're doing, for Ramapo women's basketball, or if it's, an NBA playoff game on ESPN. The preparation you do for each game and the care you take with each assignment has to be exactly the same, because you never know who's listening, and it's the only way you're really going to get better.
It's a really good point right there. All right. Speaking of basketball, actually, we'll stick with basketball. You've been around the Nets a long time. What is wrong with them?
to put it plainly,
I have no idea
what is
how to
wrong
word
with
it.
it.
You guys tell I'm already long-winded. Do you really want to ask that question? I think where it starts is sort of the conscious decision to that they felt like they needed to be really good right at the start of Brooklyn and have something that people would want to watch. And come back for. And it probably guided them in a position, in a place, to make decisions that weren't in the best interest for a sustainable future for the franchise. Whether it was dealing for a Joe Johnson, although I don't think that deal is actually as bad as people think, because they really didn't give up any players, and Joe was a really good player for them. Or, Gerald Wallace type deal, obviously the Celtics trade. They sort of constantly made decisions that were focused around being good as soon as they moved in. And that submarined the ability to build a sustainable product. Where they are now, they just don't have that many good players. You know, I mean, it's as simple as that. Thaddeus Young and Brook Lopez is a reputable starting front court on a playoff NBA team. But other than that, you know, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is promising, but obviously he's been hurt for a long time. You know, having Shane Larkin and Donald Sloan, even though Donald Sloan's played well of late, as your starting point guard thanks to Jarrett Jack's injury, or your, you know, point guard rotation. I mean, that's just not, you know, that's not NBA caliber for a winning team. We all know that, you know. I mean, it's a couple of, you know, it's one guy who's bounced around multiple teams. It's another guy who's an undrafted journeyman. And in the NBA, it's just not going to get it done. I mean, if you look at their bench, you know, their starters have actually been able to put together some decent numbers, but their bench is full of guys who maybe should be on NBA rosters right now, maybe shouldn't, and instead they're receiving extended minutes. And so it makes it difficult. You know, I think it feels like they're about to make the right decisions when it comes to who they're going to put in charge next to lead their program.
Yeah.
And I think that should give us some confidence with where they can go from here. But, you know, as of right now, obviously there hasn't been a ton of sustainability on that front either. You know, you've gone through countless head coaches in a short period of time. It's just hard to build that way. So hopefully they make, you know, a prudent hire at GM, and then somebody who works well with the GM as their head coach and can kind of use that as a long-term stability. You know, you're not always going to hit a home run, but let's just take Boston, for example, with the hiring of Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
Where you give him a 6-year deal, you know he's your guy, and you're not worried about winning right away in year one. You're worried about building something that you think can be good for 10 years, you know? It starts with hiring the right people. It feels like ownership is making a really concerted effort to go through a thorough and precise process to hire those right people, and that has me encouraged. But until you hire them, you're going to continue to end up seeing problems like you've had. So hopefully they hire those people now.
All right, now switching over to baseball, talking about a GM, Brian Cashman doing a great job in the offseason, keeping his young guys, but getting Starlin Castro, getting Aroldis Chapman. We're excited for this season. How excited are you?
Oh, man, I'm pumped. I mean, I always get excited for baseball season and for the Yankees, of course. But I'm excited to see the back end of that bullpen. I'm excited to see Starlin Castro and Didi Gregorius as a middle infield combo. No, I think this team has its fair share of issues that you're going to have to work through. I certainly think that, you know, you have serious question marks with, you know, what's happened with Greg Bird going down, and now what's going to happen if A-Rod and Teixeira are either hurt or don't produce like they did last year. Because more than anything else, I know people focus on the rotation and they talk about the total number of runs, but the second half of last year, the Yankees were a really bad offensive team. And so if they're not getting that kind of production from Tex and A-Rod, they will once again not be a good offensive team. So how do they supplement the runs they need? Is it a bounce-back year from Ellsbury? Is it Gardner somehow figuring out how not to wilt in the second half after a tremendous first half? But the back end of the bullpen itself, I think, is going to be fun to watch, guys, and I think that could be their equalizer to steal enough games to make it an interesting season.
Yeah, you just have to tell your pitchers, just give me 6. Yep. Please just give me 6. Maybe even 5. So.
No, I mean, it could, depending on the game and the importance, it could just be 5, totally.
All right, before we let you go, we already know your favorite rapper of all time is Eminem, but I need to know 2 things.
Okay.
Your favorite rap song of all time, and if you had to choose between 2, what are you watching? The 2 Pitch Perfect movies or the Star Wars series?
Oh, man. I might pull a Cam on you and just bounce. This is like the toughest question I've ever been asked.
Good. That was my goal.
my favorite... So... My favorite
it's so hard.
It is hard.
Rap song of all time would probably be Lose Yourself, even though that's so typical, and I hate being like a diehard Eminem fan and then going to like his biggest commercial song, but it's just so good. But if it was favorite, like of any song, it actually would probably be All For You by Sister Hazel. I just love that song, and my friends and I would always play it at every like party in college, and we still do to this day. Like once everybody was there, we would all like play that song and then sing it together. So I think it's wonderful for the ear and also equally nostalgic for me. But As far as the other question goes,
You got to pick it.
man, I love Anna Kendrick. I mean, I love her, but I love Darth Vader even more. So I'd have to go Star Wars.
Wow. You'd have to. I just watched all of them, and including the newest one over this past winter break. And I'd have to say,
Didn't you watch them in like a day?
I watched the series in 2 days, and then I went to see the new one that night. And
Was it the first time you had seen them?
first time ever. I've owned them for over 6-7 years, and I never touched them.
What were you thinking?
Well, Ryan over here is saying
I'm
it was
not
worth.
I'm not
it was
interested.
not worth
I'm
my
not
time.
Interested.
Oh, dude, you got to get interested.
Oh,
Like,
it is. It is.
They're so good. Here's the thing. I'm not like a sci-fi
All
guy.
right, convince
you
me.
know?
Convince
Yeah,
me.
I'm not a sci-fi guy. I really am not. Like I'm not.
And
like
neither
I
am
was
I.
never into-
That's
I
why
was
I never
never
watched
into-
them.
Right.
Exactly, because you thought it was sci-fi, and then you realize it's not sci-fi at all. It's not like Alien or X-Files or Star Trek. It's not like that at all. It's a story about. It's really like coming of age, like interpersonal connective stories. You know, like it really is. Like if you think about shows you watch growing up, like I'm just going to throw out some examples,
Saved by
like
the
a
Bell,
One Tree
Boy
Hill,
Meets World. All right,
Dawson's
yeah.
Creek, Boy Meets World, like all that. It's kind of like that, but with more tough characters, so to speak, and like shiny uniforms and bigger stakes. But like the reason you feel hooked is because of the characters, and it's funny and humorous. Man, you got to check it out.
All right, you got me on the Pitch Perfect a while ago, but
See?
I'll take it into
You
consideration.
just got to have universal trust in me at this point.
When
man.
you hear James Earl Jones' voice
That's
as
true.
Darth Vader,
That's true.
it's just
Good point.
come on.
Yeah. See, you're going to do the right
No,
thing.
no.
I just know.
All right, I'll do that.
Ryan, I'm going to bring him up here, and I'll sit Ryan in front of the TV and make him watch him.
Good.
All right?
If you don't, you failed us all.
All right. Ryan Ruocco, thank you very much for joining us today. Keep doing your thing. Thank you for paving the way for the young broadcasters like Scott and me. We are huge fans of you. Again, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Well, thank you guys for the kind words and the support, man. You guys have a great day and keep grinding, all right?
Thanks a lot, you too. Take care, man.